better look at that HIPAC map.
That's new. Do we always have the ability to
Nope,
look at?
that's new.
That's new.
This year.
Nice.
Erica, it looks like we're doing really great on target transects in terms of representing all three of the habitat types.
Yeah, and I was thinking about this might be a good time to run another one if Rennie thinks it's a good track ahead of us and the ship is able to keep up.
We are about 150 meters from the last one. I'll just wait till Argus starts to kind of make sure we're all going in the same direction, but it looks like we're all set up for that. It was only a minor change, and we've got about 200 meters to go to 2V, so that'll take us directly there.
That'd be perfect.
Are we happy with the camera angle and the lasers? I know we adjusted that a bit.
I think it looks good.
Okay. All good, pilots?
I'm ready.
Okay. Taylor Ann, we can go ahead and mark this.
Yep, start of transect number 13.
13. Roger.
Should probably go into auto altitude for this transect, right? Yeah.
So we're just passing a long spine thorny head. And next up, looks like a coupled over sole, most likely.
We have a question about whether Nautilus runs any dive ops without ROVs or if it's all with remotely operated vehicles. And then how deep that's a question we knew you were going to get. How deep can the Hercules go?
So yeah, we typically just do ROV operations. We do sometimes use an ASV, which is an autonomous surface vessel. We use that for shallow water mapping. We have launched in the past and will in the future AUVs, autonomous underwater vehicles.
Change something there?
Or vessel. And what was the other question? Oh, the deep. Yeah, so Hercules can go down to 4,000 meters depth.
Incredible. And there's a couple questions about when the team built the ROV. I assume it's like a constant project, changing and adjusting, but was there an original date where it was built, and is it sort of on version 3 or 4 or 50?
I want to say it's in the mid-2000s. Was it 2005, something like that? Nautilus has been operating since 2007 or 2008, as is with Hercules. But before that, it was used as a mobile ROV and used on other ships of opportunity. Yeah, and it is a bit about that philosophical problem that you may have seen about if you keep replacing parts of a ship, at what point, and you've completely replaced all the parts, is it the same ship? Hercules still has original parts on it, like the frame itself, the aluminum frame, and the syntactic foam pack. That's the yellow pack on the top. I believe those are original to it. And so is the Zeus main HD camera. And I'm not sure what of the others are original, but we do change out those sensors from time to time, certainly to get them calibrated, maybe to update them, or what have you. The thrusters on Argus are new as of a couple of years ago, but I think Hercules may have original thrusters on it. Dan might know a bit more about that.
I was going to insert that even on this dive, you have new equipment. I mean, you have 2 new grouped Tanner crab manipulator arms that you added like sort of mid dive. It's pretty incredible.
Yeah. Mid dive pit stop.
I'm kind of imagining picturing the dolphins from the Life Aquatic.
I often picture them out my porthole window. It's very low on the ship. Sometimes it's underwater.
I watched the Life Aquatic with a non-marine biologist, and they just weren't laughing as much as I was.
We have more than occasional viewings on the ship.
How about red hats? Everyone got their red hat?
Roger that, Dan. Yep, all good. Sorry, Kirsten, what was that?
I was asking if everyone had their red hat
Yep.
issued.
We are all issued red hats.
While you were all speaking, we were passing by what looked like a Dover sole party. We saw maybe 10. It's more than we've seen so far. And they do comprise a significant portion of the flatfish trawl fishery off our coast. As they age, they migrate to deeper water where the water content of their bodies increases and they develop a jelly condition. And it makes their muscle tissue rather flaccid and gelatinous. And it has earned them the name of slime sole. So not only do we call them Dover sole, we call them slime soles. They do tend to occur in the oxygen minimum zone, which we are in right now.
The party continues here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they tend to be specialists in the zones, as are the thorny heads. It's probably the most common fish to see in the oxygen minimum zone, are the Dover sole and the thorny heads.
We had somebody chiming in with Hercules birth year, 2003 is their suggestion. Or maybe they just know. Maybe they built it. So Erica, we had a question about our flatfish. Somebody was saying that when they're babies, their eyes are on the other side of their head, but then it migrates kind of across their face, so that then when they're flat after that gelatinous stage, they have both eyes on one side of the head, and they just wanted to make sure that always happens, right? They don't end up with one on the underside ever, or ever's a hard thing to say.
Well, they shouldn't. So yeah, when they're in their larval state and younger state, they are on either side of the head, and they do migrate to the top as they settle to the seafloor. It would be not advantageous to have an eye on the bottom side of the fish, because there'd be no reason to be looking straight into the mud. So they do migrate to the surface. So if there was one eye stuck on the bottom, it's probably a deformity of some kind. But yes, they do migrate. It's quite amazing.
Probably would not fare well, and their genes would not be passed on if they weren't as well adapted as the right-eyed fish.
And the underside of flatfish tends to be a muted pigment or almost white. There's probably no energy reason to create pigment on the underside of the fish, but on the top side, the pigmentation will sometimes blend in with their environment. So that's why you see them as sort of brown and perhaps spotty. to sort of mimic the sand or look like the sand. I won't say they mimic it, but yeah, sort of a camouflage.
Really a large number of Dover sole in here. Just
Whoa.
getting to be more and more.
Bridge nav.
Guess it.
Add one more step, 150 meters, bearing 090, speed 0.3. Thank you.
We had a question earlier about spawning. Have we seen any fish spawning? This is, we're not seeing signs of spawning here, but groups this dense may suggest such a thing. What do you think, Erica?
I don't know. They do have a spawning season, and it occurs off California from December to May. Typically occurs north of Point Conception, which we are in. And the females produce between 52,000 and 256,000 eggs during a spawning season. And they may produce 9 batches of eggs, so they won't do it all at once. But I've never seen them do, the spawning on camera. That would be great to see. We are a little early for it right now because it starts around December. But you can see why. I mean, just these are sort of congregated here. Why they are the dominant fish in the flatfish fishery off our coast, or the Dover soles in this depth range.
What would spawning flatfish look like? Can you describe that, Erica?
Gosh, I don't know. Don't know. It's a good question. One of our scientists on shore is reminding us that some of the flatfish are left-sided flatfish and some of them are right-sided flatfish. So on the left-sided, that eye will migrate from the bottom. So it looks like their left side of their face or their portion of their body is on the top and the right side on the bottom, whereas the right-eyed fish migrate the other way. And the Dover sole we're looking at are right-eyed fishes. So their eyes are on the right side of their face, and then their mouth. You can look at their mouth to see if they're left or right-eyed. Does that make sense? Feel free to Google different images.
Some of our folks on Science Chat right now are pretty impressed by this as well. They have not seen this
I've never seen anything
number.
like this before.
Looks like Kurt has left Science Chat. That's too bad. And Tom is off. Caitlin, do you have any guidance on what flatfish spawning might look like? And do you have any thoughts about what this group is all about? Or anyone on Science Chat? You know, sometimes the information that we have in field guides and such, research published papers, is based on the limited information that we have in terms of seasonality and distribution and things. And every time we come down here, we get more information. Very often, these research cruises, deep sea cruises, we come up with one or more new species never known to science. And but also behaviors and things like that may also, so it may be that this is pre-spawning, like getting ready for the spawning season coming up, you know, We just don't know. So Caitlin on Science Chat is saying that she's never seen flatfish spawning, but this amount of dovers with no other types of flatfish is very interesting.
Yeah, we are. We're almost finished though. We're getting there. I don't think they mind too much about the crabbing. So.
This is very cool.
Yeah,
Erica, can you talk a little bit
easier to-
about the fish that we're seeing? We're getting some questions for people who literally just tuned in and they're like, what are they?
Yeah, so the flatfish we're seeing are called Dover sole, and they comprise most of the flatfish market off of our coast. So you may have eaten Dover sole in a restaurant or at home. The fish in the center is a sablefish, sometimes called black cod, which is also edible. And then we're passing by these little red fish called thorny head rockfishes. So all three of these are actually very common in this depth zone, and they are targeted together in fisheries off our coast. And they are all specialists for the oxygen minimum zone. The Dover sole and the thorny head more so than maybe the sablefish, but the sablefish is also able to occupy this area. So yeah, I would also expect to see the wreck sole in here, and they will have a very long pectoral fin. I haven't been looking for them, but I'll take a look while we're here. But that's another specialist for this area, this depth zone off our coast.
All right, that's 150 meters right there.
Great, thanks.
Caitlin is noting on Science Chat that pretty much all of these sole are oriented in one direction, which is upslope.
Seems to be also into the current a bit.
Yeah.
They may be able to hold their position with their fins by staying in that orientation with the current coming through.
Earlier in the, I think it was dive 1, we had a really fantastic moment where we were able to zoom in completely on a deep sea sole, and particularly on the fin, which completely line the I was going to say top and bottom, but left and right sides of the fish, and you could actually see them kind of walking. You see these kind of rippling movements in the rays of those fins, kind of walking itself forward and holding on. So I imagine that is exactly what's going on here as they hold position. We have ended our transect.
It's quite a slope. Am I seeing that correctly? Pretty
Yeah.
steep.
Yeah. Definitely got steeper along our transect.
Variation there.
So we're still approaching 0.2V. And then I can zoom out a couple clicks here, and then provided you don't want to go back down to 2U, our next point is 2W, which is pretty much due east of here. But happy to stop and look around or whatever you'd like to do along the way.
Yeah.
change
That's a great
bearing.
direction it's a great direction you're headed, and we do have time to explore. So scientists see something they want to check out.
Could we zoom in on one or some of these flatfish just to get people a close-up look?
The one to the left right here?
Sure, that would be great.
Might be an opportunity to see some of the geology as well. Guy is saying that these are, we can see bedrock layer outcrops on this slope.
All right. Steve, you want to zoom?
The scientific name of Dover sole is Microstomus pacificus, and microstomus means small mouth, and they do have a very small mouth. And then, of course, pacificus is an indicator of where they occur in the Pacific Ocean. So when taxonomists or scientists name things, they tend to use the genus name to describe it.
Zooming out.
In this case,
Thank you.
Microstomus. And then the species name is sometimes named after a person who was influential in the field, or also the location, in this case, Pacificus.
So Jan is asking if we could get a zoomed out image of a large aggregation of Dover sole without the ROV moving.
Sure, once we get out ahead, we got to get caught up a bit, and then we can get that shot for you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Predators of the Dover sole include the California sea lion, harbor seals, seabirds, including western gulls, common murres, and branch cormorants.
Yeah.
So it's amazing that some of these animals can dive to the depths of their habitat. They do range from 30 meters down to 1,460 meters. But we were talking the other night about how deep some of these marine mammals can dive. It's quite amazing.
Yeah, elephant seals diving to 150 meters. That is a time and a half the depth that we're at right now.
Roger.
And Jan stated that common murres are known to dive to at least 100 meters. It's quite amazing. And that is a seabird, the common murre.
Wow.
I can barely get down to 10 feet holding my breath.
Yeah, and typically if we are crabbing along a little bit, if you're slightly upslope, then Argus rather than downslope gives Argus a bit more height off the bottom. You don't have to be like all the way up, but doing a good job staying in the pocket here. It's good situational awareness.
Yeah, transects have been going really smoothly. Thanks.
Okay.
For people that are just joining us, come across a big congregation of Dover Soul and had a couple questions about the green dots. Those are two lasers that show us the distance on
What'd you
the
say there?
seafloor of 10 centimeters.
Okay.
So we have the ability to turn the lasers on and off, but especially when we are trying to measure something during transects, where we are collecting video data that will be post-processed, we need those lasers on. If they're not on, we lose out on a lot of really important data, which is regarding size and which correlates to age of the individuals.
Sometimes when we get a particularly beautiful glamour shot,
Ooh,
we'll
a
flip
poacher.
the lasers off so that we can
We
get a
just
picture
passed
without them.
over a poacher.
You want me to look back?
No, no, no.
Okay.
And I started second guessing myself.
Seem to be using these little shelves as protections from the current or something like that.
Erica, did you see Jan's note in SciChat?
0.3.
I did. Thank you.
Great.
So for those of you joining us, we have been diving for a number of hours. We reached bottom at about 1 a.m. And we have a number of objectives for this dive. The dive is expected to last about 24 hours. And on this dive, we are trying to collect a number of systematic transects covering 3 different habitat types. So soft bottom, mixed bottom, and hard bottom, so rocky substrates. And we've done a great job so far, all the teams, of collecting a nice sampling of each of those habitats, representing all of the habitats. And we are also collecting some specimens as requested. And so we did collect a piece of a sponge that they'll need to look at the glass spicules, small part of the structure of the sponge to actually identify to specific species. And we collected two large coral colonies that will be used for aging. One will be going to, I guess they will both be going to Cal Academy. One will be going to Gary Williams, and one going to Karina Fish. And then we are also collecting water samples. And when we're doing the water samples, we are looking at the chemistry of the water, basically looking at pH. We're trying to get a sense for, we're collecting data for ocean acidification monitoring. And we are also collecting water samples for eDNA, which Erica has talked about a couple of times, looking for sloughed DNA from species in the area so that we're able to see what the community looks like based on the known DNA. We're also collecting some sediment cores. What am I missing, Erica?
I think you covered it. That was great.
What time are we leaving bottom? Is it
I
closer
think
to
we're
midnight tonight?
on deck at midnight. Is that correct?
Yes, I think so.
And we're only at, I think, 700 meters or shallower, so it shouldn't be too long, under an hour till the surface.
So that means we might get a good night's sleep tonight for our shift.
Some of us will be mapping.
Okay.
Or sample processing. That's the fun part. So I don't mind
Oh yeah,
staying
that's
awake.
right. Taylor Ann's got the hard one. All hands on deck for that.
It's
I
worth
actually
every hour
switched
that you
over
lose of
to-
sleep, though.
Yeah, it is pretty cool down there. Especially like seeing what they look like down at the bottom and then seeing what they look like at the top. And
Yeah, Erica mentioned before that really is something that the scientists ashore really miss. That's a really exciting part, to be able to actually see what we collected.
I also
And it's a
miss
fun
all the great.
opportunity.
I also miss all the great meals on the ship. It's one of the best meal plans I've ever had on a vessel. It's so delicious and different. I think there's a Ukrainian, is it, chef?
yeah, that's right. 2 Ukrainian
And
cooks.
it's amazing.
There's a lot of variety at every meal, certainly. They do a great job. Now, did I hear that you say, I think Kirsten, someone said that perhaps we'll be doing this next year, or is that planned for our vessel, or?
Oh, I don't know.
Oh.
I don't know what vessel that, the last few years, the sanctuaries have been diving, and often it's been on the Nautilus, but not always. Sometimes it's been on the NOAA vessel, the Shimada,
Right.
the Bell Shimada. We always feel
Rennie,
lucky when we can be on the Nautilus.
Rennie, would it be possible as we're making our headway to, 2W, just to go up slope a little bit and peak and then come back down? Is that easy
Sure.
to do?
It seems like a pretty gentle slope, so what I can, well, let's see, even now, let's take a look at HiPAC here.
I think the slope goes up pretty far, so just a little bit, just to see if it changes.
Yeah, so you just want to do a step north and then kind of go over?
Yeah, and then come back down.
Sure.
Yeah.
All right, we're going to alter course to north, going upslope.
Roger.
Bridge nav. Change course to north. Thank you. And then you can see the greater scheme of things here is it looks like we'll have a bit of slope and then it'll flatten out again at the top. Interesting to see what
Yeah,
the
comment.
interface looks like.
Should I get out in front of Argus, or is it fine right here? Off to the side?
Yeah.
Okay.
Interesting linear feature in the Argus or in the Herc sonar. Could be one of these ridges again. It's just showing up pretty prominently. Looks cool.
It almost feels like it's a wall, or is that just my perception? It's not that steep.
It's fairly steep. And this section, yeah, even the Bathy agrees. It got some tighter contours here. Argus view has a good kind of view of how steep that slope is. Hercules is right up on it. It kind of looks like a wall. But
Right, thanks.
And if you want to look at the sonar, it's up on satellite feed 3 now.
yeah, what I think
Yeah, I
that
see it.
was Hercules sonar is on the left and Argus is on the right, and we saw just kind of a linear feature. I suspect it's one of these kind of mini ridges, stratified layers. That's kind of not showing up so well now.
Dover still haven't given up.
We have a comment from Jan where she says Greater Farallones National Marine Sanctuary has a joint ROV cruise with Cordell Bank National Marine Sanctuary next year on RV Fulmar. Fingers crossed that that will go.
Nice.
And someone from the public had a thought on the Dover Sole accumulation. It's kind of interesting. Wondering if maybe they're seeking kind of optimal oxygen levels, kind of looking for that either just above or just below an optimal oxygen level. And they said that that's something that happens in British Columbia where they have their expertise around slender sole.
What? Oh, okay. Well, they are oxygen minimum zone specialists, so it's a pretty broad zone off our coast here. So the conditions may be the same within a broad area of the zone, but on the edges, I don't know if they're on the edge or not. But it's interesting.
What is the scale on the sonar right now? Are they both the same?
The Hercules one is on the left, and that's the range of those rings. Those red rings are 10 meters per division, and on Argus it's 20 meters per division. It's in the upper left-hand corner, and we can alter those as we want. But that's pretty much what we drive on.
So it looks like we've got sort of similar habitat up the slope. Nothing much has changed.
Yeah, it seems that way. It looks like we've come about 15 meters vertically. We're at 700, and we were at maybe 720, so 20 meters. Was it? Yeah. Oh, you got your fancy graph over there. Looks, yeah. It's fancy because I can see it from all the way over here. That's pretty nice. Yeah.
My skate.
Nice skate.
I think that's the longnose gate again.
I did.
So you might want to see how you're kind of parallel to it. Eventually you're going to get up
Oh,
ahead.
okay.
That way Argus isn't getting too close to the slope.
Yep.
Yeah.
Move a little faster.
I'll do a quick USBL reset on the way.
Randy, I don't know if we have need to go too much farther. I don't want to get us too far off course that it makes coming back down less cost effective in terms of being able to see things. So
Sure, I think we can go directly
and-
east from here, and we'll be roughly lateral along. And
okay.
then once we reach there's a crux here, we can go follow contour back down the 2W without having a drop down, if that's all right.
Yeah, it sounds fine.
Okay, so I'll change our course to east.
East.
Bridge nav. Change course to east. Thank you.
We have a great comment coming in and a question about a sighting. First, the comment, thank you all for this. This lowers my blood pressure to watch. Stay safe. And the second comment or question is, has the team seen a blobfish?
We have not seen a blob sculpin. That would be the kind of blob fish we'd see off our coast. I would predict we will see it in the next couple days when we're at Davidson Seamount. It's pretty common to see the blob sculpin down there. So stay tuned. We'll be at Davidson Seamount, I think late tomorrow afternoon or evening, if I'm correct. I'll look at the schedule. Yeah, late tomorrow night after 4 o'clock, maybe into the wee hours. Maybe we'll see some blob sculpin.
I know at least on one of the cruises up off Olympic Coast last week and the week earlier, they did see some. I don't know if any of you were following them. Just a call out to the fact that the whole West Coast, all the sanctuaries, with the exception of Cordell Bank, are being visited by the Nautilus. So following this cruise, the Nautilus is going to be heading down to Channel Islands National Marine Sanctuary. So if you don't get your fill with us, you can continue with the next cruise in Channel Islands. I will certainly be following.
Looking on the quad cam, the conditions at the sea surface look amazingly flat. There's no wind waves or anything. Maybe the swell's a little bigger, but the wind waves are null and void.
Yeah, it looks pretty
So
glassy
how's it
out
feel
there.
out there? Does it feel pretty easy sailing?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Is
Kind
it
of
the
hard
calm
to,
before the front?
yeah, it's
Yep.
kind of hard to believe that, well, there's a bunch of weather coming in, at least down in south of Monterey Bay and Davidson, or southwest of it.
We had another question about if there's that image of the stoneware with the crown hallmark, if that's been posted anywhere. I don't know if it's been posted anywhere yet, but there was a piece of ceramic that people were looking at the logo and trying to study it and figure out maybe it was from the 1800s, had an anemone on it, which kind of made it all the more fun. But has anyone seen that posted on Nautilus Live yet?
I haven't looked, but how I don't know when they, maybe Taylor Ann knows better of when they do get posted after a dive.
I'm not too sure. Steve, how does that work when we see highlights and things? I know, so one of my jobs is I'm marking some audio and video highlights, but I'm not sure how often we go in and post it. Pretty quickly, I think, if it's something really interesting. But yeah, I'm not too sure. Steve?
Yeah, those highlights are created by the team back at the Inner Space Center in Rhode Island. So I'm not sure. Was that on this dive?
It was on the dive previous.
Sounds interesting.
Yeah, Chad did a little sleuthing. It appeared to be ironstone made by Bishop and Powell. That was the mark on the pottery. And so we have our maritime heritage historian looking into the history of it. So maybe they'll report back on that during our
Correct, we're
dive.
Look at the rockfish surrounding the lone rock.
Okay.
Rare rock down.
I think Erica, Chad sleuthing was even sleuthier because I think that only the top part of the logo could be seen, and then it was sediment on the bottom part. But somebody matched it to a logo where the top half and that part that was buried had the Bishop and Powell, or the name of the further information.
Yes.
So it was pretty sleuthy.
Yeah, that's good.
We're diving once on an unidentified shipwreck target, and just so happened the way we came upon it, we were driving around kind of looking for any identifying information, and it was a U.S. Navy ship, a Fife class destroyer, I think. And so we didn't know anything about it, and so as we're honing in, I was actually on shore at the time, but I was in my graduate program and avoiding doing work, so I was like furiously typing away at the internet, trying to figure out what this was to help them identify it. And it was pretty satisfying because we identified it both as a U.S. Navy ship and then a Fife class. And then by the time we had rounded the back to see the name of it, we had identified 4 of them that it could have possibly have been. They were purposefully scuttled by the Navy. And it was one of those 4 when we read the name. So that was pretty cool. Kind of like a real-time
Do you remember?
marine might have been Peterson. Could be wrong.
Where was it you said?
That's a stretch.
Did you say?
That was maybe in the Gulf of Mexico. That was years ago though, so that Peterson name is just completely out of the ether. Like a cat.
Do we still have our crab? Oh, we do. There he is.
Their first mate.
I wish someone had a clicker counter to
Yeah.
capture all of these soul. The
Never
numbers
ending.
are just phenomenal.
Sure, someone reviewing this video will be having a lot of fun.
Yeah.
I haven't seen any other species in here, but I also have been paying attention to other things. I wonder if anyone on Science Chat or elsewhere has noticed any other species of flatfish. Continue to see thorny head rockfish, the red ones or reddish ones.
We are approximately 230 meters away from our last transect. So at any point forward, we can start one.
Okay, Erica has just stepped out for a moment, so but should be back. So let's.
Yeah, no worries. We can just keep going as is.
Yeah, sounds good.
USS Peterson.
Yeah. Did I remember that correctly
did.
from years ago? Yeah, what was cool about that is I wasn't on the ship, so really I was no different from anyone watching at home, and I was typing in. I didn't have a back channel. I was literally typing into the Nautilus Live website, and the science communicator was relaying information from what people were typing in. So
the site of the wreck was confirmed in approximately 2,400 meters of water on July 7, 2014 by EV Nautilus.
Yeah.
So this is Erica, I'm back. Was there a question?
Oh, we're 200 meters from the last end point of the last transect. So if we would like to do another, we could.
Yeah, let's do it. It'd be great to capture these Dover sole. I know that's not why we choose transects, but yes.
And Caitlin Grafe has chimed in on Science Chat, confirming the question that I asked, that so far she has only seen Dover sole. And like Erica said, the other species that likes this depth would be the wreck sole. But we have not, don't believe we've seen any.
Okay, you guys ready to set up for it?
Yep.
I'll let you get situated, and let me just continue this move while I'm at it. Bridge nav. One more step, 150 meters east. Thank you.
Is that a good height? All right.
All right, Tayloran.
All right. Start of transect number 14.
14. H1824. T.
All right.
We are at 692 meters.
Just want to remind everyone at home that what we are seeing right now has not been seen by people before. This is a first exploration in this particular area, and we are really fortunate to be able to be here and see this for the first time.
And the Dover sole that we're looking at, they are relatively long-lived species, living up to 53 to 58 years. It's a pretty long time.
Wow.
It's practically my age.
Are the ones that we're seeing all adults? All fully?
I imagine, yeah, all of these are adults. Yeah.
And because it seems like their size doesn't vary too much, does that mean that they kind of max out in size at a certain age?
They will. So let me tell you a little bit about their maturity. I might have spoke too soon. Females definitely grow faster than males, and they also reach a larger size. And males are mature between 12 and 16 inches, so about 30.5 centimeters. So we'll have to watch the lasers when it goes over to see how big these are. And females mature at about 33 centimeters. So 3 lengths of those lasers would be a mature animal. So some of these might be a little smaller than that.
And that's including the length of the tail, is that right?
I'm looking online. I don't know if it's so there's different ways to measure fish. I don't know if they measured the total length or the standard length. And the standard length is right where the caudal peduncle, which is where it narrows from the fish out to the fan of the tail. That's the caudal peduncle. So when I'm looking at this data, it doesn't say if it's total length or standard length. We can approximate. So let's see how big some of these fish are. They are 3 times the length of the lasers, 4 times the length of the lasers. What do you guys think? Let's see.
Yeah, I'd say some might even be more like 4.5 times the length. Some a little bit less than 3.
So most of these would be mature adults then, which I think was the initial question.
So the juvenile forms of these and many other ground fish are important prey for seabirds. The diving seabirds that were mentioned before, Brandt's cormorants, common murres, they will eat them in the smaller phases of their life, the juvenile forms.
We have a question about transects versus mapping. So asking, is this mission the equivalent of running a transect survey on land for flora and fauna, or is the mission primarily for mapping?
The mission is not necessarily mapping, although if we can't use ROVs to conduct our surveys, we will switch to mapping capabilities. But right now our priority is to run some transects to ground truth some of the remote sensing that has been done to map the area, but also to see what the species associations are with the habitat type. So the transect